Yes, the one and only Aaron Hernandez. We're gonna get into how we met this dude and, how everything went down. So around this time, me and London was still together. But for some reason, London and, Magnificent, they wasn't speaking at this point. They wasn't no longer hanging out and being friends, and which was kind of, strange to me how, I don't know, why they stopped being friends. I just, know London told me that, they just stopped communicating, they just stopped being friends, and, Magnificent started acting funny, you know. Also around this time, you know, Magnificent started dating this football player from the Seattle Seahawks. We gonna call him JP for now, you know what I mean? She started dating him and, I feel bad from her because I didn't know if, she was gonna start acting Hollywood, and you know how people get when they start dating certain athletes or celebrities, so I wasn't reaching out to her like I used to, even though me and Mag used to date before I met London. Once I seen she started dating the football player and, things of that nature, I kind of like, kind of limit my communication with her. But one day I was chilling, you know what I mean? Me and Platinum was chilling in the studio, you know what I mean? Platinum, working on some music. I'm sitting, with the producer, because, I'm paying for the beats and shit. He playing beats for Platinum, you know what I mean? Platinum's waiting. I get like a text message from Mag with a flyer, inviting me to come to her grand opening. Her friend is opening a boutique, her friend, named Sarah or whatever, at least that's the name. I think her name was Sarah, I could be wrong, but, her and her friend was opening a boutique, so she invited me, you know what I mean? And, so I'm like, well, I already know her and London ain't talking, so I can't bring London with me. Her and Duke don't get along, you know what I mean? Because her and Duke had a fallout, you know what I mean? So I'm like, so I asked Platinum, while he was in studio, was he down the road to go to the grand opening of this boutique with Magnificent and her friend? He said he was down. I said it's dressed to impress, so, he was like, alright. So, I, texted back, told her, yeah, put me on the guest list, me and Platinum, and maybe one other person is coming, you know what I mean? So she said, alright, cool. So, the night of the grand opening of the boutique, me and Platinum pull up. We brought Flame with us, you know what I mean? So me and Plat, we was dressed up, fly-ass suits on, you know what I mean? Matching shoes, Gucci belts, Louis belts, all that shit, you know what I mean? Louis glasses, Gucci glasses, Flame was more, low-key, simple, Versace sweater, some slashing shoes, all three of us strapped, of course, So three of us walk into the boutique. There's a lot of people there. So Magnificent sees me, and she, comes over, greets me, you know what I mean? And was like, thank you for coming, whatever, cool. You know what I mean? So as we walking through, we notice there's a lot of football players in here, a lot of NFL players is in the boutique, you know what I mean? It's a big ass boutique that, that they having a grand opening for. Magnificent and her homegirl Sarah. So it's mad NFL players in there, because already in my head, I'm already knowing, okay, so the football player that she's dealing with, JP, obviously is financing this. He must have bought this boutique for Tyler and her friend. Cool. A bunch of NFL players in there. We walking through. I noticed Peaches was there. I'm like, oh shit. Like, what the fuck she doing here? That's what I said to myself. I ignored her, walked past her. Flame ignored her, walked past her, so cool. So next thing you know, Mag, has a champagne glass in her hand. She's tapping it with a spoon to get everybody's attention. So everybody's listening. and she wanted to welcome everybody for coming. To, the grand opening of her boutique. I think they was like the first two black women to open up a boutique, you know what I mean, out in Dallas or whatever. So, people was clapping and was happy, you know what I mean, that two black women are going to be the owners of a boutique with nothing but high-end fashion, you know what I mean, Gucci, Louis, Versace, Fendi, Prada, Chanel, you know what I mean, anything high fashion. And they was gonna have in the store, so of course, people was already, buying stuff, making purchases. So that's when JP, the football player, he interrupted her and said that, he had an announcement to make. Next thing you know, this nigga gets on one knee, everybody's like, oh, so then, all the ladies there started pulling out their cell phones and shit. You know what I mean? This nigga pulls out a ring, this nigga JP, pulls out a ring and he asks Magnificent Tyler to marry him. Of course she said yes, so they happy, you know what I mean, and they kiss and shit. And you can look this up. You go to Magnificent Tyler's Instagram. There should be a picture painted at the top with Magnificent and her friend. Both got black on, holding champagne glasses. That was the night of the grand opening for the boutique. And the night that JP, proposed to her. So, alright, cool. So, so I walk over to Magnificent, congratulate her. So we talking, she saying things, she introduced me to JP, the football player. I don't really watch football, but, I know he played for the Seahawks, We shook hands or whatever. So he excused himself, after I congratulated him, he walked over to go talk to some of his NFL friends that was in the party. So after I told Mag, congratulations, I'm like, yo, what Peaches doing? She was like, oh yeah, me and Peaches squashed whatever differences we had, you know what I mean? She apologized to me, we cool, we've been hanging out. And, she's cool people, you know what I mean? Mag even told me that she had Peach's books, and like they will be selling Peach's book out the store too, you know what I mean? Like it's about women empowerment, especially black women sticking together. So I just like, oh boy, I'm like, alright, you know what I mean? So she smiled and said, she said the reason she ain't been reaching out to London, because she said she know London will probably feel some kind of way, because, Peaches and her have beef, and it was before her, so she said, she, didn't want to pick a side, but she already knew London wasn't going to go for it, so it is what it is. I'm like, yeah, I understand. So after that, I'm like, alright, so then I walk off, and Mag, she's entertaining the party, the guests. So as I walk back over to where Platinum and Flame was, we chillin', we talking. I look over, I notice, these NFL dudes kept staring at me. Now one of the dudes, I recognize, the dude, Emin Hernandez. Now I did recognize him because he had a reputation of being a bad boy, in the NFL or whatever. But I didn't think nothing of it, but, the Emin Hernandez dude kept staring at me. You know what I mean? And and I'm like, so I said to Flame and Platinum, I'm like, yo, what's up with this dude? Yo, this nigga keeps staring over here. And they was like, they don't know. Next thing you know, Ammon walks over. And he was like, yo, Tony. And I'm like, yeah, why, what's up? He was like, yo, man, he put his hand out. He said, yo, I got a lot of respect for you, you know what I mean? He was like, I love respect for you and your niggas, man. He was like, he said he knew me. He said he knew Flame. He said he knew Platt. He said he also knew Duke Fell and SD. He was like, yo, how come SD and Duke get hit? I said, well, SD, he had something to do or whatever. And I was like, Duke, him and, I told him and Magnum really get along. He was like, alright. He was like, yeah, I got a lot of respect for y'all niggas. So I asked him, and I'm like, how you know us? He was like, man, he was like, y'all name ring bells. And, like, I could tell he was like, he had a lot of respect for us, and, which was crazy. Like, the way Aaron was talking to us, and he was kind of acting like me, Platt and Flame was Jay-Z 50 or Wayne. Like, I'm like, damn. So he was like, yeah, man, we should hang out, you know what I mean? He was like, yo, y'all, he was like, it's hard to come across some real niggas. He was like, I can tell y'all some real niggas, man. So I'm like, alright, so I took, Aaron's contact, give him my contact, and he said, yeah, man, we definitely gonna hang out, man. We're gonna keep in touch. So we shook hands. Cool. That was the night of, the grand opening, man. So I also told Tyler to put me on the mailing list so that way anything exclusive, she can just contact me and I come pick it up, come try it on, make sure it's fit. So, within that time, Mag will always hit me up and say, yo, we got something exclusive, some new Louis sneakers, some new Gucci sneakers, belts, whatever it was, jackets. And I would go down there, try on the stuff, make my purchase, and then walk out. Each time I would come, the little wall of fame was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like they wall of fame, like it, because there was a lot of black women that wanted to support Mag and her friend, because there's two black women that own a boutique, so they had pictures, of like all the people that came and shopped and made a purchase. They had Remy Ma's picture up there. They had E's picture up there. Trina, Little Kim, Glorilla, Megan Thee Stallion, Nicki Minaj, Megan Good. Halle Berry came through with, her boyfriend, Janet Jackson, like anybody you could think of, Clarissa Shields, like every black female you could think of, that somebody done came through Mag in Sarah's store at one point and made purchases because they wanted to support these two black women, like, so they were blowing up, they was getting money. So every week or every other week I would go there, make my purchases, go in the back, try on my stuff, cool. So Aaron reaches out to me for the first time. He invites me and causing the rest of my niggas to Michael Vick's house to have, Michael Vick was having a party or whatever. Alright, cool. So I rounded up the crew, because we was gonna go to Michael Vick house, cause Aaron Hernandez, so take us over to Michael Vick house, and we to hang out. So we was gonna meet him there. He told us meet us at Michael Vick house. He gave us an address. So me, Flame, Platinum, Duke, and SD, we roll out to Michael Vick house, big ass mansion, fly ship. So we get in there, and it's all kinds of shit popping off. You had strippers, Instagram models, porn stars, like, because they had this thing also going on in there called the Ass Parade. You could look this up, where they had Cherokee, Beauty, Pinky, Sky Black, Stacy Lane, Jada Fire, like they had the Ghetto Barbie from Instagram, Judy Law, Kelly Starr, they just had mad like female porn stars, legendary black female porn stars, and any female porn Joe Scott, like any female you could think of that was popular at that time. They was at that party, you know what I'm saying? Like, Roxy Reynolds, like, like the list just goes on and on and on of all the females that was there. Johnny Blaze from Instagram, like, So you had all this ass walking around, big booty girls, porn stars, Instagram models, regular strippers, you know what I mean? So they had to aspirate, so you had, girls giving lap dances, doing VIP in certain rooms, just shit going down. So down in the basement, that's where they had the dog fights now. SD was down there placing bets on the dogs and shit. He was loving that. I couldn't take it. Like me, I don't even watch the Animal Channel. Like I hate seeing like how you be seeing like a pack of lions jump on the L. I don't know. I just can't see animals get harmed. So, I stood there for a minute and SD was hyped. He was betting money. And like my nigga Nanny Dolls, he was dead. Nanny Dolls was down there, referee t-shirt with a whistle in his mouth. The nigga Mike Vick was holding one pit bull on a leash. Another nigga, some NFL nigga, I can't think his name, he had another dog on a leash and they holding the leash. So Mike Vick got the referee shirt on the whistle. As soon as he blow the whistle, they let the leashes go and these dogs started, ripping each other to shreds, ripping each other apart. And SD loving it, and SD, he got his money in his hand. All other NFL niggas and regular niggas, they betting I'm like, oh man. And Nanny Dogs is there. And they these dogs is tearing each other apart. I just got up out of this. I just went back upstairs. I go upstairs. Duke Farrell chilling. He at the blackjack table. They gambling. They playing cards. Duke Farrell, he smoking a cigar. Got his cowboy hat on. and he had the stripper sitting on his lap. This big booty stripper sitting on his lap. And he's killing these niggas with the cars. Like, he was winning, like, every hand, you know what I mean? So he's winning all the chips and shit. I guess they were playing poker or some shit. So he's killing them, laughing and cracking jokes and shit. Alright, cool. So I'm still walking through. I went into Lethalits. Now, Lethalits is another legendary porn star, but she's from New York. Me and her, we both from Queens. I know her personally, so when she see me, she's like, oh shit, Tony, what up? So, we hug, kiss on the cheek. She like, how you been? How you feeling? Good, good. So we talking. She was like, she was like, she said, I wanna go smoke. She was like, come with me, cause she wanted to go somewhere and smoke. Plus, catch up on old times and shit. So we looking, cause there's mad rooms in the house, so she's looking for a room for us to smoke. So after you looking for a room to smoke, we hear like gargling and choking. It sounded like somebody was gargling and choking at the same time. So we like, what the fuck? So as we get closer to the door, it gets louder. The gargling and the choking. So Letha lives like, shh. She like, be quiet, be quiet. So then that's when she opens the door, and the girl looks back. There's some girl, some stripper in there. Top is something to go off, and when the nigga look up, it's JP. That's Magnificent Tyler's man. I'm like, oh shit. So that's when Letha said, my bad, I'm sorry. And closed the door real quick and started laughing because she did that on purpose because she wanted to see who was in there sucking dick. But in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, that's the JP nigga. That's the JP nigga that Magnificent just got engaged to. I said that to myself. And me and him locked eyes before Lethalist closed that door. So I'm like, oh shit. So we went to another room with a few other people in there smoking. So we went in there. She rolled up a blunt. We made short conversation. Whatever, cool. So then she goes back, and I guess go entertain, make some money. Now the whole thing that killed me, you had all these black women in here with these big asses, from the porn stars, strippers, Instagram models. But what killed me is that most of these NFL niggas either had girlfriends or wives, and most of their girlfriends or wives were white. But yet here we are at this party, and they worshiping all his ass. That's kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like you saying what black women ain't good enough to be your wives and your girlfriends in public, but you want to fetishize. I cut that to myself though, so I'm moving around. Went into Platinum, he's having a good time. We talking. Next thing you know, the JP nigga tasked me on the shoulder. He was like, can I holler at you? I'm like, alright, so I excused myself. He was like, yeah, man, he was like, I just wanted to make sure, that you good, He was like, if you need anything, So it's like he tried to like hand me some money. I'm like, nah, I'm good, play. He was like, nah, I'm just saying. I was like, I said, check this out. I said, whatever, you and, Magnificent got going on or whatever, none of my business, what I'm saying? Like, it ain't got nothing to do with me. He was like, I appreciate that. We shook hands. He was like, but yo, for real, if you need anything, just let me know. Alright, cool. So that was a crazy night. Cool. So that was the end of that. So as time goes on, we hanging out with Aaron. You know what I'm saying? We hanging out with Aaron and shit. And some crazy shit happened. We went to this club. Aaron, we went moving out to Boston. Because we used to, fly, around, like, go to different states with Aaron. Because he always wanted to hang out with us, And me, I'm always in the back of my head thinking, we could clean up our money, but this nigga would always procrastinate. We trying to clean our money. This nigga just want to hang out in the hood with us, and but it's like, nigga, you in the NFL, why would you want to come down to our level? Like, we trying to get to where you at, but, Duke always told me, yo, just be patient, get on his good side, we'll get there, so alright. So we hanging out with this nigga out in Boston, right? Me and Flame, we hanging out with this nigga in Boston, basically being his security, pulling him down. This nigga, he's chilling in the club. Some nigga named Daniel, and this other nigga named, I forgot his name, I think his last name was Furtado though, or Fernando, something like that. But I know one of the niggas' name was Daniel, was two Spanish niggas. They bumped into Aaron at the club, spilled drink on him. So, that was kind of like, whoa. So then, when Aaron follows the dude, cause later they saw that on camera when he followed him, but when he followed him, he was, basically talking to him like, yo, what's up with, basically trying to get the guys to apologize, and the guys was basically like, fuck you or whatever, talking shit. being disrespectful. So I'm like, so me and Flame saw that. And then Aaron came over. I'm like, yo, don't worry about that. We gonna handle that. So we exit the club. So we in two different cars. So Aaron's in one car, we in another. Now the cars are the same, but they're different. Like I said, Aaron's in one car with his peoples, we in another. So we told Aaron, don't worry about that. You just get up out of here. We gonna see these niggas. So we riding behind the Daniel nigga and the other nigga. Flame driving. I lean out. Pop, 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 pop. Lit these niggas on fire. You know what I mean? Right there, the light. We get the fuck up out of this, skirt off. Now, I ain't think these niggas died. I just, I lit off a couple shots. This, kind of like a warning shot, but, we later found out, but they really didn't have no suspects, you know what I mean? Even though, they talked about Aaron getting into an altercation and all that, but nothing really came of it, you know what I mean? So when that happened, Aaron was real hype. He was like, yeah, he was loving that. So he wanted to hang out more. I'm like, nah, we gotta lay low and chill. You know what I mean? We gotta chill. Like, when you do shit like that, you gotta lay low. You gotta keep your nose clean. So, so we had to explain to him, like, you gotta chill. So we laying low. Still hanging with him, but we just laying low, chilling. You know what I mean? Going to a few games with him and shit. So, like I said, and also at the same time, I'm always going to the boutique buying, making my purchase. So one day I'll go to the store. I'm walking in, and Yella Beasley's at the counter with his baby moms and his security making a purchase. So after he makes his purchase, his baby mother and security walks out. And then when I looked at Mag in the Savage shit, Mag shook her head like, yeah, I know. I'm like, wow. So I go in the back. She telling me the latest, like, yo, we got this came in, this shipment came in. So I'm looking at the different stuff that coming in. Her phone rings. So you know how somebody's on the cell phone and they got the phone to their ear, but you can hear everything, like. So, she's, so she talking to the JP nigga. I know it's him. So he's like, yo, babe, I'm gonna be busy. I ain't gonna be able to. And she's like, yo, you always busy. Like, you don't spend time with me. You don't do this. You don't do that. Now, at this point, I'm in the dressing room. So I guess she must, so I guess by her being on the phone, she must have forgot I was in the dressing room, but I could hear everything. And she was like, yo, we haven't had sex in this long. We haven't done this. And he was like, yo, I'm busy. He was like, when you got with me, I'm a busy man. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. She said, yeah. So she said, who's this bitch that they keep saying you with at the blogs? It was some black chick from some Instagram model. Oh, one of them, some singer or some shit from Instagram. He was like, oh, that's nothing. She said, so why TMZ and all of them was saying this and the Shade Room saying this? He's like, look. He was like, yo, either you gonna be with me or not. And so he hung up on her. So, I could tell her upset. So I come out and I'm like, yo, I'm like, you alright? She was like, yeah. So, she crying. So I wiped the tears for her, gave her a hug. I'm like, yo, man, everything gonna be alright. And then, after I hugged her, I guess, one thing led to another, started kissing on her, feeling on her, boom. We getting it in the dressing room. I'm knocking it down, boom. Knocking it down, boom. Cause she ain't had sex in a minute. Put on the desk, boom. Knocking it down, boom. Knocking it down, right? So, boom, we done with that. So I'm like, oh, shit. But we both didn't regret it, cause like I said, we dated prior. And plus, like I said, this nigga ain't been spending time with her. He ain't been giving her no dick, so, so it was like, I would come every day, every week, like I've been doing to make my purchase, but at the same time, me and Mag getting it in, boom, so now we back, sleeping with each other, but nobody knows, cause she's in a relationship with the, JP nigga, football player nigga. Of course, I'm still with London, but, boom, me, having fun. Alright, cool. So, things started heating up, you know what I mean? As far as, the Daniel and Fernando shooting, you know what I mean? They was accusing Aaron, but, we kept hearing rumors that, that they was investigating them and all that. But, nothing came of it. But, we still hanging out with him here and there, you know what I'm saying? Doing our thing and shit, you know what I mean? And then one day, I got a message from Farrago told me come down to his club, talk to him. So I get down there. He's with this chick named Above. Now Above, I know for a fact was with law enforcement. But I guess, Farrago had on payroll to where she would give him a heads up. And, she basically was telling me, like, yo, she was like, your boy, Aaron Hernandez, she was like, yeah, it's an investigation on him. And she was like, you and your peoples might wanna like, stay away from him and, all them NFL niggas and, you know what I mean? And I'm like, why, what's up? She was like, well, it's an indictment coming down on not only Aaron, who's the suspect in these two guys' murder, but the dog fights and the gambling at Michael Vick's house. All these niggas about to get hit. So she was like, so keep your nose clean, stay away from them. Alright, cool. So we started dissing ourselves. Not only because of that, but this nigga Aaron, every time we would try to basically clear our money, be like, yo, put us on payroll so that way we could start, laundering and cleaning up our money. This nigga bullshit. We kind of like had to cut ties from Aaron. So, that's when, but being that Aaron was hanging around us for so long, I guess he felt invincible until he made the mistake. And he had Odin, this dude Odin killed a mile away from his house. Now that's what really brought the heat, and that's how he got arrested. We get into him later on what happened. So then, like I said, I would go make my purchases, So I go to the boutique. Sav is busy with a customer. So Sav already knows, I'm walking in the back. So Sav she like, hey, but she's busy with a customer. I'm walking in the back. I'm hearing like sniffling, like I'm hearing sniffling that getting closer to the office with Mag, in the dressing room is I'm hearing sniffling, so I'm thinking Mag is crying or something. But when I look through the crack of the door, I see Magnificent and Peaches both sniffing coke off the I'm like, oh shit. So, they both sniffing coke or whatever. So when they finished, that's when I stepped back. And I'm like, yo, Mag, I'm like, yo, Tyler. So I was sort of, making noise so that way they could clean. So when I walk in, they done, moved up the, coke, cleaned and coke off their nose. So I could tell they was high though. And then I'm like, yo, what's up? When I'm looking at them, they don't know I just seen them sniffing coke. I'm like, okay. So then that's when, Tyler, she's feeling, frisky. So she started touching on me. And then, Peaches was like, oh, he mad at me because of, whatever. And she was like, don't worry about that. She said, we probably could make it. So that's when Tyler grabbed my dick and Peaches came over. And, even though I'm not into drugs and shit, but I ain't gonna lie, two heads is better than one. So, they both went down and, next thing you know, they both slurping and burping and choking. And I'm like, fuck it. Boom. We get it in. Boom. I'm banging Tyler out. Boom. Flip over Peaches. I'm banging it, all out threesome in the office. You know what I mean? Cool. Boom. Do that. Knock it down. Boom. So we finished. We getting dressed. Sarah went to the back. She was like, yo. No, she ain't went to the back. I think she called Tyler. She was like, yo, this nigga JP coming because she could see him parking his car in the parking lot because they got the cameras. So they like, oh shit. So me and Peaches run in the back in the dressing room. We putting on our clothes in the dressing room. Tyler fixing herself up. And we can, how you can see through the blinds in the dressing room, but they can't see in so we can see out. So the dude walks in. He's like, yo, I need to talk to you. So Tyler's talking to JP. She like, what's up? He was like, well, he was like, I got a confession, he basically, and Peach is trying to fill on me. I'm telling her, stop. I'm like, shh, I'm trying to hear. So that's when he said he had a confession, he had something to tell us, and, so Tyler's like, what? She's sitting on the desk, JP's standing in front of you, and, he basically wanted to tell her that, it's true, he's been having an affair, he's been messing, around, and, and not only that, he got the girl pregnant, so Tyler like, damn, she said, you done went and got this black bitch pregnant. And he's like, nah, he was like, it's not her, he got somebody else pregnant, and of course it's a white chick. I'm like, oh, so that's when Peaches, made the old face, like, Her eyes got big, so now she's listening, we listening. And he was like, yeah, he was like, I love you, but he said, I think, this is my first child. He said, I think I'm gonna, cause this dude was younger than Tyler, so he was like, yo, this is my first child. He said, I wanna be there. He said, I think I'm gonna be a, so that's when, Magnificent started going all to me. I said, you gonna leave me for some white bitch, and da-da-da-da. I started arguing. So she got up, started slapping him, slapping him. So then, you trying to tell her stop. Next thing you know, he's starting getting aggressive. So then that's when I'm bust out. I'm like, yo, chill, chill, chill. So he looked, he like, what the? He's like, you did. Then he went to like step through. That's when I pulled my gun. I'm like, yo, now I ain't got no shirt. I got my pants on, but I ain't got no shirt on. So I got my gun. I'm like, yo, playboy, chill. So he was like, what the fuck? And she was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, since you ain't been spending time, yes, I've been fucking this nigga. So like, and what, like Tyler went off, how Tyler is. So he was like, you fucking bitch. So then, when he started going off and arguing, he looked at me. When he stepped close to me, that's when I cocked my shit. Peaches already got her gun in her hand. You know how Peaches is. I cocked my shit. I said, playboy, this ain't worth your career, your life. So he said, you know what? He was like, fuck all you motherfuckers. He was like, far as this motherfucker boutique, bitch. He was like, I'm changing the locks tonight, bitch. He was like, pack your shit. Get the fuck about my shit. So then that's when the nigga leave. So then that's when Tyler sit down. And she crying, so Sarah comes running back. She like, yo, Tyler, what the fuck? And she's looking around. See me and Peaches got guns. I ain't got no shirt. She like, what the fuck? So then that's when they explain everything, how he having a baby with a white girl. He's been cheating on her, and, so it's like, damn. So, but they ain't take him serious. Till the next day, this motherfucker really had the locks changed, and then, little by little, day by day, the store was closed, and the shit just lost momentum, and then eventually, that nigga shut the store down. So now, as far as Aaron, like I said, once, Abubba came and told us about the indictment coming down, we fell back. But this nigga still wanted to live the outlaw life and got this nigga Odin hit a mile away from his house. That brought heat, and then that's when he was on trial, but I showed up at the trial for support. Me and Platinum, we showed up quietly, show love to his wife and his daughter. And he beat the first two bodies. He beat the body for Daniel. And Fernando, he beat that. So we thinking good. He might beat this Odin body. And unfortunately, they found my man guilty. Boom, you know what I mean? And then, one thing I could say about Aaron, he kept his mouth shut. He never rattled us out. And, we held him down while he was in there till I, got the news, unfortunately, that, he hung himself and killed himself. And, that was just a crazy time, that I had with, Aaron. But, much love to Aaron, man. Rest in peace, baby bro. Miss you.